Hello everyone. This is Natasha from the NextSound team, and today we are going live on an AI project about MCPs. Have you used MCPs before? Is this a completely new concept to you, or is this something that you've actually used before? I am so curious how everyone is thinking about MCPs today. Well, we've got a very hands-on project for you, so if you like learning by doing, then you're in for a treat. Shall we have a look at our project guide? I'm going to put it straight into the chat as well, so you've got access. Here we go. Very nice. And let's get into it. Wow! Hello. This is called Build a Database with Cursor and Supabase MCP. This is an extremely beginner-friendly project if you're new to MCPs and you just want to set it up. Just use it for something and see how it works, see what everyone's talking about. Why is MCP such a hyped subject, such a hyped topic? Well, in this project, you're going to take NextSound, a mini Spotify clone, and build a feature called a likes feature that lets you favorite tracks. So here we're going to like some favorite tracks, and then you're going to watch a database update live. So yeah, compared to other projects in our AI Workspace series, which you might have done before, and if you haven't, that's okay. This project is very unique because we're going to connect our web app with a live database, which is something we haven't done before. And this is where you're going to learn MCPs. The whole reason why we could even create this live database within 1 hour or 1.5 hours is because there is an MCP connection we're about to make, or an MCP server we're about to connect to, that makes database creation so easy. So you might have heard about Supabase before, you might not have, and that's totally okay. We don't expect any experience with any of the tools that we're using today. Just follow along, just get hands-on. We'll be using Cursor, which is an AI IDE, so an AI tool that helps you with writing code, and the Supabase MCP. So this is basically the tool that helps us with creating that database very quickly and very easily. So if you're still wondering, why should I do this project? This project really showcases the MCP, the power of MCPs. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it is a new way that we can use, it is a new way to connect AI agents like Cursor directly to external services like GitHub or Supabase. So in short, instead of just being able to chat about your code with Cursor, which is something you were able to do earlier in this project series, this project lets us even build and manage the entire database for our web app just within our Cursor chat. That is an insane power we're now giving to Cursor, and you end up saving so much time as well, because instead of having to go into Supabase and using some sort of Supabase AI tool to be like, hi, how can I create a database, and then how can I connect this to my web app, you can now just do so many more things in the same place while you're still in flow coding and creating your web app in Cursor. You can just create your database there without having to go off platform and learn another platform. So that's the reason why MCPs really give you a lot of power and save you a lot of time. Of course, like every NextSound project, you are gonna walk away with something you can show off. And in this project, it's gonna be a working music app with a live database, which is gonna be very exciting, team. Now, I have just mentioned the AI Workspace series a couple of times, and if you're thinking, oh my god, this project is part 3, what do I do? Don't worry, you can just jump straight into this project without doing part 1 or part 2. But if you do want to explore 2 of the best AI coding tools that are out there, highly recommend checking them out. The links are right here. Yeah? So a big welcome to everyone, by the way. We've got Hola, and we have Dius saying hola, and we also have Rajnish saying good morning from India. Ooh. We also have Kashav saying good day. Thank you so much, Kashav. Good to see you, and we hope you enjoyed this project. Now, every single track of this project gives you a different learning experience, a different level of guidance. This project guide, or this demo, is going to go through step-by-step guidance. So we're going to go through every single click, every single thing that we're doing together. Whereas if you're thinking, hey, I can do some of this on my own, I want to challenge myself a little bit. You can give yourself a little bit of challenge using some guidance, or a lot more challenge using the on your own mode of this project. If you don't know which track is best for you, you're like, how do I pick? You can click here for a few tips, which pops up this handy little tool here that lets you ask for a bit of advice on which one you should pick. Oh, we have Christian saying hola from South America. Amazing. Christian, nice to meet you, and thank you so much for joining today. Yeah, and look at that. Here's a breakdown of what each track or each option means for you. So like I mentioned before, step-by-step guidance is the one with the most amount of detail. So I hope you're excited. We're all gonna make it to the end, okay? Let's make a promise now. We're all gonna make it to the end of this project. Alrighty. Now, before we start step 1, here's a quick introduction to the web app that we're going to be building on today. We're working with a web app called NextSound, and it's all about music discovery. You can use it to browse tracks from popular artists, discover some new music, search for songs, and you can even toggle between dark and light mode. So it is like the perfect kind of foundation for us to experiment with because it's a simple app. Doesn't have too many pages, it just has one page. But it also has lots of fun little elements that lets us, just do some crazy things, create some new features like we are right now. Because by the end of this project, you're gonna build a complete likes feature. So right now, as you might see, you've got a static web app static web app sounds funny. But you've got a web app that, gives you all of these different tracks and they're amazing. How can we level it up? By letting the user like their favorite songs. So this is going to be something we build from scratch together. We're going to build the UI for liking tracks. And then there's going to be a database that's going to track every single like. So, which tracks has likes, which tracks don't have likes. Your database is going to be in charge of tracking that. And then finally, one thing that is super handy with having an MCP connected with your AI client, Cursor, is that it lets you actually query your database straight from your Cursor chat. So this part is awesome. You can now ask Cursor anything about your database, and you'll get to do this by the end of this project too. So yeah, that's 3 main things we're going to set up together now. A heart button on top of every track so you can like. And then 2, a database that stores and tracks every single song's like count. And 3, an MCP connection, which lets you chat directly with your database through a Cursor chat. That MCP connection is actually going to do a lot more than just querying your database. It's actually going to help us with creating that database in the first place. So this is a very, very powerful MCP connection. Let's do it. So we have talked a little bit about Cursor and Supabase now, and I think we'll just spend a little bit more time understanding Supabase before we move on. Supabase is a tool or a platform that lets you set up backend. So for example, for an app that's like the database or the user authentication for that app, and it helps you set that up very, very easily. Typically, if you wanted to set all of this up from scratch, it takes a long time to create the database, or it takes a really long time to set up an authentication system. How can people log in? How do you store users' emails and passwords and make sure it's secure and make sure like they get an email that makes them confirm that they want to sign up? Both things can be super, super complicated. So Supabase is here to make that setup very easy. So it's essentially a cloud-hosted database where you can store and retrieve data. And for this project, we're absolutely picking Supabase as our cloud database. It's going to store like counts for each track. So every time a user clicks the heart button on a song, Supabase is going to be in charge of tracking that like count. You might also notice that there is something called open source here. So you can actually, click on ask if you're curious what that means and say, what does open source mean? Is it a good thing? My personal tip is to always add, be concise. Shout out to Kahu and the team for mentioning that this really helps responses be a lot easier to read. Yeah, so if you're new to the term open source, it does mean that the code is, publicly available. Anyone can view it, modify it, distribute it, and it allows, I think people just love open source projects because, one, it's great for the community, it's great for collaboration, and people just love, supporting something that's community driven. So for Supabase to be so powerful and so useful as a platform while being open source makes it one of the most popular projects on GitHub. Yeah, it's really cool. Cool. And we have been kind of talking a little bit about MCPs, and you might be wondering, what are MCPs before we get hands-on? So MCPs are translators between AI agents and external tools. So you might be familiar with the concept of APIs. APIs are great to enable communication between two pieces of software. Let's say you have an app and you want to talk to another app. Let's say I have a personal website that wants to connect with the weather app, so I'm always pulling the latest, weather reports for my city. That is like an awesome example of an API where my software is probably always communicating with this other piece of software to get up-to-date information, and I don't need to manually, go in and change the degree of the temperature and the dates, because an API handles the refreshing of data for me. It's like constantly grabbing new data. But what about LLMs? So APIs are great for two pieces of software communicating with each other, but what if one end of that is actually an LLM trying to talk to a piece of software? So this became like a very new problem with the rise of LLMs and people wanting to use LLMs in all different kinds of apps. For example, you might have some sort of AI agent where in the background you're actually putting through some prompts to tell the agent to hey, can you create this calendar event when I tell you to? The software has a very, very hard job of trying to figure out how can we get the LLM to make the right calls to the external tool. How do we always make sure that the LLM is accurately creating these calendar items? It's extra complicated because LLMs don't always have 100% predictable kind of output. You might have experiences like talking with ChatGPT. You can say the same thing. You can say hello or goodbye, or you can ask the same question, but the response isn't always the same. In fact, you're more likely to just say okay, expect a different response every single time. So how can you, use the power of LLMs where it can understand natural language prompts and combine that with the predictability of, maybe APIs? So MCPs are here as a bridge between your LLM and also the external tools you want it to communicate to. In this project, we're going to use Cursor as our AI agent and then Supabase as the external tool. So we're going to tell Cursor about a database we want to set up, and we're going to say it all in natural language. We're going to say, Cursor, I want you to create a database. And the Supabase MCP is the translator that Cursor is now using to translate our natural language prompts to specific API calls or actions in Supabase to make it happen. So now Cursor has the ability to handle database operations for you. Isn't that so powerful? It can actually go into your Supabase account and create databases so you won't have to set things up manually yourself. That is a power of MCPs, and let's experience it together. You don't need to worry about costs in this project. You can definitely do this in a free account, in a free Cursor account. Just be aware that if you're on a free Cursor account, that there are limits to Cursor's free tier. You can typically make around 50 to 70 prompts in a Cursor chat. And if you're getting close to that limit, you might end up hitting a, hey, you have to upgrade to keep using Cursor kind of banner. If you want to just make sure you don't hit that, let's be a bit careful about our prompts and maybe not get too trigger happy if there's some changes that you want to make. We'll actually use techniques to make sure that our prompts are very precise, so we don't need to send through too many to get to the outcome that we want. So what are we doing in this project? My goodness, I've just been yapping away for 14 minutes, team, just to talk about what we're doing in this project. So I hope we can all have confidence in this question. Let's have a go. So in this project, we're going to what are we doing, team? We're going to use the Supabase MCP or Cursor. We're going to use Cursor and the Supabase MCP to set up a live database for my web app called, for our web app called NextSound. NextSound is a music discovery app that lets you explore the latest trending music. We're doing this project to learn. What are you doing this project to learn? Well, you can learn about how to set up an MCP. What is Supabase? How to set up a database for a web app. You can learn all of that in this project. Nice. So let's get into it and set up our development environment. This is the first step that's going to make sure your system is set up to use Cursor, is set up to use Supabase, is set up to use our NextSound web apps code. So first things first, I feel like exactly what I said, but reverse. We're going to start with the code. We're going to open that first, and then we're going to install the Supabase MCP server, and then we're going to make sure there's a connection between Cursor and that Supabase MCP. I just realized this is the first time we might have just mentioned the word server, and we just dropped it in the guide. So you might be looking at it and go, what is a Supabase MCP server? If you're curious about that, highly recommend we actually could have a go at asking that. What is a server in relation to MCPs? Be concise. In the context of software and web apps, a server is a computer program or device that provides functionality for other programs. Okay, so long story short, this MCP server is a remote kind of instance that's just running in the background that has all of this like code, so that this server knows exactly how to translate, natural language prompts into specific actions that you can do in Supabase. So when we say we want to install the Supabase MCP server, we're actually just wanting to connect to something that is right now running remotely, in the cloud. And once you connect your cursor into that Supabase MCP server, it's like connecting to a brain that knows how to talk to Supabase and create things like databases just through natural language prompts. We say the word installing a server because actually, not every MCP server is remote. Not all MCP servers are actually in the cloud. A lot of MCP servers are servers you can actually clone from a repository and actually run locally in your own machine. This is a great idea. This is a great thing you could do if you want to keep more data, privately, so that even your MCP server is a locally run instance. But, we don't need to go there. Let's go for the remote option. Let's just connect to something, a server that's in the cloud, so that we can use this MCP even faster and in even simpler fashion. Ooh. So shall we get into this step? So in this step, we're going to set up our project by first opening our web apps codebase, then connecting to a remote MCP server. And let's be clear that this is a Supabase MCP server. So there are multiple different servers for different tools. There's like a GitHub server. There will be an Airbnb server. There are all different kinds of servers that you can find by checking out Model Context Protocol, MCP, in GitHub. But this time, we're going to focus on the Supabase MCP server, and we're connecting to it to Cursor. So we're connecting Cursor to a remote Supabase MCP server. Cool. All done. All right, so in your computer, let's find and open Cursor to kick things off. So I'm using a Mac in this project demo. You will find that Kahu, who is filming the project demo for our some guidance version of this project, is using Windows. So if you prefer a Windows demo, highly recommend checking out Kahu's too. All right, so let us, yo, can I open my Finder here? Can I? Oh, here we are. And let's search for cursor, shall we? Whoa, I think I'm getting the double clicks today. Very interesting. But I found cursor here. So I'm gonna click on it. Cool. So here we are with cursor now open and ready for us. Nice. It looks beautiful, eh? I love cursor's like interface. So beautiful. Now, if you don't have cursor, now's a great time to download it. It is free to download and create an account. You've got the link to the download page if you want to have a go at doing that yourself, or try step 1 of our cursor project so you can get step-by-step guidance for that too. You've got different kinds of AI clients that you can use. Cursor isn't the only client out there that can connect to an MCP, but we do recommend using Cursor. The whole project is designed around it, so you will get the best experience. All right, now you might already have this, the project code for NextSound if you've done previous projects, but we're starting from scratch. So I'm gonna go for, I don't have NextSound, in my desktop. If you do have it, you can follow the steps in this tab. All right. So let's clone the NextSound web app from GitHub using Cursor's built-in Git functionality. From the Cursor launch screen, let's select Clone the repository. Okay, so we've got clone repo over here, and let's go ahead and select that clone repo and paste the link to the repository. So it's over here. I've just copied it. And I'm pasting that here now. Press enter. And from here, you're now asked, okay, where do you want to store this repository that you're cloning? Let's go for our desktop. So I've double clicked into my desktop and I can just select that as my repository destination. There we go. Would you like to open it up? Yeah, we do. Let's click on open so we can look at our NextSound code right away from the moment we clone it. Very nice. Okay. Cool. So NextSound is now open right inside Cursor. Ooh, that looks pretty. That's a pretty bang-on screenshot. It looks exactly the same. Wow. And we're gonna switch to the right branch for this project. So let's open a new terminal in Cursor. We're gonna give Cursor a command that says, I wanna switch to a specific branch, which basically means I wanna switch to a specific version of the NextSound code. We have pre-prepared some code that basically lets us implement our likes feature a bit faster than if we just use the template NextSound code that we use for every single project. So let's switch to the branch so we're making the most out of that pre-prepared code. And all we gotta do is head into our menu bar here and select new terminal. So we're popping over, open a terminal that lets us enter that command. The command is called git fetch all. So this command tells Cursor, this command tells your terminal that you want to fetch all of the different branches that come with this repository. There could be multiple different branches, multiple different versions of this code, and you want to fetch and see all of them. So let's press enter, so you're fetching all of them. Okay, and once you run that, you can switch to the feature/like branch. So let us use this command that basically lets us check out, which means switch, into the branch that's called feature/like. So feature/like is the name of that branch, the name of that version, and we're simply switching into that. Cool. So let's copy that code that lets us check out feature/like, and let's run that over in our terminal. All right, I've pasted that now. I can press enter. And here we go. We've switched branches just like that. That was very quick. So I know we might not be able to see it visually, but behind the scenes in the code, there's now a few changes so that we're putting in pre-prepared code that helps us with creating our likes feature even faster. You can check whether or not you are in the right version or whether or not you've got all of the pre-prepared code using this handy shortcut. So while you're still in your IDE, let's press Command P in your keyboard, Command P. So this opens up the command palette. You might start to see this little bar at the top now. This command palette basically lets you search for files throughout your code base. There's a specific file we can look for, and that is Supabase. Sounds familiar. And that's because there are two files in there, or actually one file, called the Supabase client that usually would take a little bit of time to develop. But what it does is it helps with setting up some of the backend that can connect a web app with a Supabase database. Now this code is actually quite template, which means you can actually go online in the documents and be able to find the Supabase client or Supabase service code. All we had to do was kind of bring that in, but it can take a little bit of time to set that up yourself, which is why we brought that in for you today. Hey, we got a party going on in the live today. We've got Adil saying hi, good to see you. Oh my gosh, is this the third week of us hanging out in a live project demo? Hey, Amber says go Natasha, sending love from the whole network team, sending all the love back. What a vibe. So now that we're here and we've double checked that we're at the right branch, so we're gonna head down and also if you're running into an error while you're checking out into the right branch, please know that maybe there are some file changes that you need to make or save, and here are some commands that you can run to help you with resolving that error. But if you're still stuck, please come check out the NextSound community. We're always here. We're always keen to know where we might be stuck so we can troubleshoot together. It's a lot of fun. All right, so now that we've got our code base all set up, good, so NextSound code tick. Next thing for us to tick off is the Supabase MCP server. So this is something that we'll need to install, which basically means that we'll need to connect our Cursor client, the IDE, with the Supabase MCP server that lives in the cloud, that lives remotely. You can even click here, to have a look at Supabase. And let's ask this question. I'm curious. I want to know. Okay, so what is the Supabase MCP server? What's the difference between Supabase and the MCP? What do you think? And you know what? I'm gonna chuck in that magic 2 words of be concise so we can see that answer straight away. And we've got Maximus in the house. Or is it Gukesh that's in the house? Thanks for taking a break from the chess matches to support a fellow team member. How good. I'll have to tune into your chess match live after this. Nice. So Supabase, as we introduced earlier in this project, so that is the platform itself which you can use to build databases, build your backend, build user authentication features. And the MCP server, or the Supabase MCP, is a specific communication tool that bridges communication between the AI LLM and Supabase itself. So instead of thinking of the server as being able to create the database for you, no, the server doesn't do that actually. The server simply passes communication on. So it really is a translator rather than the Supabase platform for creating databases. All right. Oh yeah, this one, I think this sentence explains it pretty well. So in essence, Supabase is the core platform, and the MCP server is like an extension that facilitates AI-driven interaction and the management of your projects. Cool. Okay, so while we're here, let us install that Supabase MCP server by heading into the cursor settings. So we're going to open our cursor settings in a second, and we're going to select a settings page called Tools in MCP that lets us find the way to connect to the Supabase MCP. So it's right over here. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see it. Wow, super zoomed in. So we're going to click on that open settings page. And I'm gonna close these windows. So you can close these windows by pressing, toggle primary sidebar, toggle panel. You can click on that, toggle them away, toggle that away. So good, so clear. And let's open up our settings page now. So we can check out the Tools and MCP page. All right, it's looking pretty empty right now, doesn't it? Which is exciting because we're gonna start from a blank slate, okay? So while you're in your project guide, you're here, you can now click on this direct link to install the Supabase MCP server. Yo, did you know what deep links are? Deep links are basically links that help you with, when you click on the link, it takes you to an app and a certain part of that app, or it does something in that app for you. So in that case, what we just clicked on, that direct link, is actually a deep link that only Cursor will understand. So the link actually starts with cursor / and it has a specific code. So, install an MCP with the name Supabase and the configuration, and here's like a configuration token. So just like that, we use that link to help set up an MCP server that's now ready for you to click install. So let's click on install now. Yo, and just like that, our MCP is getting connected to Cursor. Well, not quite. Okay, we're almost there. We just need to set up authentication, which is part 3 of this step. Okay, so we've got the code set up and ready to go. We've got our MCP server installed into Cursor. And now the third part is making sure we've got a connection, okay? Now that we've installed the server, let's actually make sure there's a Supabase account on the other side that's connected to Cursor. We'll just have to click on that handy connect button. Okay, and it's going to want to open an external website. It's going to want to take us to another page in our browser. That's totally fine. It's safe to open this one. So let's click on open. All right, here we go. Wow. Are you ready to learn about Supabase? Oh, I'm excited for us. I'm very, very excited for us. So I'm going to just minimize this window a little bit. So we've got to open like this. So we are now here, okay, ready to set up a Supabase account. You might not see this login page. There's a chance you might see something else. If you see an authentication page like this, please switch over to this tab. It actually just means that you've already got a Supabase account that you simply need to connect, so you've got less steps to do. Lucky you. For most of us, you're probably completely new to Supabase too. So we'll be going through this flow together where we're seeing a login page. Okay, so there's a sign in modal here that you can use to sign in if you have an existing account, but we don't have an account, so we're gonna go straight into that sign up now button. Let's click on that. And let's get started. So for sign up, it's super simple. You can just choose to sign up with GitHub or sign up with the classic email and password combo. We're gonna go for the email and password way to do it. And all you gotta do is type in your email and your password and click sign up. So I'm just gonna quickly do that in a new tab. Okay. I'm gonna type in my email. I'm just doing this in a new tab right now. And cool, and I'm just putting in my password and I'm clicking sign up now. All right, so once you click sign up, you're going to see a sign up successful page like this. Okay, so you're gonna see a sign up successful page that looks a little bit like this, and it says, check your email to confirm you've successfully signed up. Now we're just gonna run to our emails and just make sure we click on a verification link to complete our sign up. So now you can open up your inbox, which I'm doing as well. Apologies, my email is not loading. Hey, come on, come back. All right, so I've got the email open on my email. I've got the email open in my inbox now, and you're gonna see something that looks like this that asks you to confirm your email address. Just gonna make sure you can all see that in the stream. Look at that. Ooh, confirm your email and launch your projects on Supabase. All you gotta do is click on that confirm email address button, to finish your sign up. So I'm just doing that right now on my tab. I hope it's going well for you guys. If it's feeling a little tricky or something's not going well, all you gotta do is you can take a screenshot of your error, you can put that into Ask here, or you can come join the NextSound community and we can help each other out. Okay, so once you click on the confirm email address button, it's going to take you straight back into kind of the flow for connecting Cursor and Supabase. I don't know how they do that connection so smoothly, but you straight up go into this page now, which I have opened live over here. Okay, so it looks like this on my screen. Ooh. Whoa, let's go back up. We're almost there, team. We're almost there. And it actually tells you that, do you want to confirm that you want to authorize Cursor to connect to Supabase through an MCP? And here it says, before you can even do that, you need to create an organization in Supabase. Okay, so I'm going to move my little tile, my little photo tile, so you can see that green button with me. An organization is kind of like just like an account or a billing kind of account in Supabase. You'll just need to have one before you can set up any databases. So for us, let's definitely make sure we create an organization. While we're here, a quick little rundown. So how things or databases are organized in Supabase is, you start with creating a Supabase account, which we've just done, and then you create an organization, which is just like a workspace where you can collate things like billing and different kinds of projects. And then you have projects, which are like different databases. And then within each project, there are different pages like, oh, okay, do you want to set up, for example, NextSound would be a project, that web app. And then you can create, databases for that project. You can create user authentication for your project. So we're going to go through those kind of different levels very quickly. Account, organization, project, and then database. So let's start by creating that organization. We're going to click create an organization here. And you can change that name into, the name that we're going to use for today's project. NextSound MCP project, NextSound web app. Honestly, most organizations are a lot simpler in name. Maybe the name is just NextSound like this, but we've chosen to give you a more descriptive name so that it's very easy to remember what you created this organization for when you come back to your Supabase account. The beauty of Supabase is you can just create a personal organization that's free to use, and it's a very generous free plan, so we won't get stuck or we won't get blocked from continuing to create our database today. Let's just click on create organization now. Yeah, and what that does is, creates that billing account or that workspace in Supabase. So when you scroll back down into this page, there's now an organization that you are connected to. And now Cursor, or this authorization request, is saying, can Cursor connect to this organization in Supabase? And, of course, it's like accepting, it's like saying yeah, of course, why not? So you're gonna authorize Cursor. Cursor is now let into your organization. Happy days. Now Supabase wants to go back and open up your Cursor IDE. So when you open that, ta-da! Supabase MCP set up! Well done, well done, well done. If you're here, it's actually an awesome milestone. You've just installed and authorized a connection to an MCP server. Well done, because it just means that you have now kind of empowered your Cursor IDE to do so much more than what it previously could do. Cursor's already so powerful on its own, but now you've just layered on the ability to create, manage, handle databases for you too. Okay, so now that we're here, let's have a look. We've authorized, we've opened it, we can verify that the connection is successful. Did you notice that I just opened this thing straight away? Oh, I just opened that 29 tools enabled thing straight away. I got so excited. But actually, let's slow down a little bit and let's look at what this means. What are 29 tools? What does that mean? So how MCPs work is, how, we talked about how MCPs are like translators between an LLM and the external tool that it wants to control or use. Tools are like almost specific commands you can now do, or you can now say, like once you're connected to that MCP server. So Cursor, because it's connected to the Supabase MCP, it can do different kinds of Supabase actions. And those actions are limited to what tools that MCP gives us. So now, because we're connected to the Supabase MCP, Cursor can now do a command called search docs. Okay, and search docs means you can now search the Supabase documentation using GraphQL. Okay, cool. Cursor can now do something called get cost, which means it can get the cost of creating a new project or branch. So interesting, right? So now all the things that Cursor can do is defined by the tools that are provided by that MCP server. So what does that tell us? First things first, it tells us that just because Cursor is connected to the Supabase MCP, it can do everything you could possibly think of in Supabase. That's not true. You can now do everything that is in this list. And handy little tip for anyone that's watching this live, we don't have this in the project guide, but just so you know, you can actually click on different kinds of tools to allow and disallow certain tools in Cursor. So you can say Cursor can do this, do this, do this, but I'm not gonna let Cursor do this, cross it out. Okay, so we now have specific tools, these specific commands that helps Cursor interact with Supabase. And let's now take a screenshot showing that Supabase or our MCP is connected. I'm just gonna separate these tabs so we've got full screen access to our project guide. And Christian, thank you very much for saying well done. Well done, well done. How about you? Did you get your Supabase MCP all set up? Okay, we're gonna take a screenshot of the tools and MCP settings page now. I quite like this view, so let's take a screenshot like this. And let's put that screenshot into our project guide. Ta-da! MCPs. What do MCPs do? Oh, well, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And it helps AI agents connect and do actions or perform actions in external tools. Without MCPs, AI agents like Cursor would not have the ability to, I would say, without MCPs, AI agents like Cursor, actually, it's not that they wouldn't have the ability to do something, it's just that they'll be a lot less efficient at it. So AI agents like Cursor would be a lot less efficient or productive when it comes to turning natural language prompts into actions. Cool. Now for the moment of truth, we've got our MCP connection set up. Shall we test that it works? We're gonna close the settings tab over here. We don't need it anymore. And what are we gonna do next, team? What's a great way for us to test whether Cursor's authenticated to our Supabase organization? Well, we can ask Cursor a few questions. So let's open up our AI pane like this, and let's ask Cursor a very simple question. what is my Supabase organization called? Oh, okay. Well, we just set up that organization together. Do you recall what that organization is named? As a hint, it's the name that I said, oh, this is longer than what a normal organization is called. Because we're doing a descriptive one. Oops, it says I've hit my usage limit. This definitely would happen if you are using a free account, but I'm just gonna switch my model to auto so I'm not hitting that limit now. Okay, well done. So first things first, Cursor is gonna say, I'll help you find your Supabase organization name. Let me check your Supabase organizations. Yo, and what is this? What is this? So it says run list organizations. Run list organizations, what does it mean? Cursor is actually asking us to approve the list organizations to call. That's totally fine. This tells us that Cursor wants to use the Supabase MCP to figure out which organizations it's connected to. Okay, so this is nice. Let's click run and see what happens. All right, very clear answer. Your Supabase organization is called Network MCP Project, NextSound Web App. This organization has this ID, and it appears to be specifically set up for your NextSound Web App project. Yo, so just like that, you can now chat with Cursor about Supabase and what you've got in Supabase. You can now chat with Cursor, about things beyond your code base. Isn't that so cool? It's amazing. So Cursor's response looks perfect, looks great. And let's reflect on what just happened. All right, so we just connected Cursor to the Supabase MCP. We verified this connection by asking a simple prompt in a Cursor chat. What is the name of our Supabase organization? So the MCP lets Cursor run a tool call called list organization. Okay, so Cursor ran that tool called list organization to access the organizations. To access, I would say to read. Would I say read? Well, actually, to access the organizations it's connected to. Because remember, when we authorized that connection between Cursor and Supabase, we authorized it for a very specific organization. We didn't just say, hey, Cursor now has access to all our organizations. We just picked one. And so because of that, it really only has access to the organizations we allowed it to see. Well, so the MCP lets Cursor run a tool call called list organization to access the organizations it's connected to. This means when I ask, this means Cursor could accurately respond to my question with the name of my Supabase organization. Very well. Okay, so you've successfully connected your AI editor to a powerful cloud database. Let the real magic begin. Ooh, all right. So step 2 is where we can set up a Supabase project for our app. Now, a Supabase project is different to a Supabase organization. You might recall previously I just mentioned that organization is goes from the top where you have your Supabase account, and then it goes into creating an organization within your account. And then within organizations, you've got projects, and each project is a separate database, a separate part of what you and your team might be working on. An example of 2 different projects is you could have one project on tracking the likes feature, and one project on creating queues or playlists, or one project on maybe different kinds of, I would say, maybe there could be a project on like emails that we send out, like all just within this big umbrella of NextSound and the web app. Now, there is going to be a file that we have to create that the cursor's not going to create for us. We're going to do this manually. It's called an environment file, and it's going to store, information around our app's connection to Supabase. So when you're ready, let's respond to this little question about what are we doing in this step. So in this step, we're going to set up a Supabase project. Oh, and actually, if you're feeling if you like to look for a little bit of inspiration on how to describe it, here's something that you could pop into your NextSound Ask chat to say, hey, what is a Supabase project? What's the difference between a Supabase organization and project? Okay. Yeah, so we've got a project as a single development instance with its own database and services, and organization is a container for multiple projects. All right. But in this step, we're just going to create, we're going to set up a Supabase project, and we'll create the environment file, aka .env, that sets up the connection between our database in Supabase with our web app. Okay, very nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and prompt Cursor to work. It is going to create that project for us. That's right. We don't even need to create that project. We don't even need to go into the Supabase website and try click through the console to create a project. What if we just did all of that in a prompt to Cursor? It's connected to the MCP, so it does have access to those actions. So let's type in this prompt into our Cursor chat. So you can put it here if you'd like. Personal recommendation is to do things in a new chat, so you're always kicking things off with fresh context. If you think that your Cursor chat doesn't need, if you think Cursor doesn't need to know everything in your conversation, like existing messages in your conversation, to answer your next question, then you can probably clear the chat and just start fresh. All right. Now it is a bit of a detailed prompt, so let's check it out together. We're going to use the Supabase MCP to create a new project and set up a connection between NextSound and my database. We're going to ask Cursor, explain how to create an environment file. Include, these variables and fetch their values using the Supabase MCP. Keep your answer very concise. So let's send it off. And while that's doing its job, we're going to just break down that prompt together, yeah? So that prompt first asked Cursor to create that Supabase project. And then it asks Cursor, can you somehow find a way to connect the Supabase project or the databases in that project with my web app? Now, this connection between your web app and your database is different to the connection between Cursor and the Supabase MCP, right? These are two different connections we're now needing to set up, because Cursor's connection to the Supabase MCP simply allows you to make sure that when you chat with Cursor, in that chat on the right-hand panel, Cursor has access to your Supabase account. That's what it does. And it also has access to actions that it can do in Supabase. Completely separate to that is your web app's connection to that database, because NextSound also needs to have its own connection so that when you are liking tracks, those likes are getting mapped into your database too. So to make sure we've got that connection, there's going to be a file that we need to create, and that's the .in file. That's the third thing that we're going to do. You can even send this prompt if you'd like to learn more about it. And there are two key variables we need to understand as well. Cool. So those variables are called Vite Supabase NN key and Vite Supabase URL. So maybe let's be more concise with these two. So Vite Supabase NN key is Supabase's API key, whereas the Supabase URL, it's like a different endpoint for your Supabase project. So that lets our app connect to and communicate with our Supabase backend service. On the other hand, this allows read and write access to our database. You can even ask what's the difference between the two, so we can get to the bottom of them. Let's see. So what's the difference between the two anyway? So the Vite Supabase NN key is a public API key for authenticating requests to your Supabase project. Okay, it authenticates requests to your Supabase project. And the Supabase URL is a specific address your application uses to connect to that project. Interesting. So there are two different things. So there's a request to the project and also a connection to that project. Interesting. I'd imagine that once you've got the Vite Supabase URL, it's kind of like saying, hey, this is the address, or like this is the destination for me. I now have kind of like a street address to the Supabase database or your Supabase project. But once you get to that address, how do you open the door to go in? You will have to use your NN key to literally unlock the door into that Supabase project and go inside. So that's why you need both. It's kind of like a URL and a password is how you might be able to think about it. Okay. So here, Cursor is still setting up that Supabase project, and actually it needs permission to do a few tool calls. First thing it needs is list organizations. It needs to figure out which organizations you're connected to. And then it's going to get the cost for creating a new project, which should be $0. Yep, it says the new project will cost $0 monthly. Very nice. Let's just run that. So we're confirming that. Excellent. And now it's creating the project. Ooh, okay. So it's creating the project now. You can even see that it's creating a project that's called NextSound Music App. So it's clearly using some information in our code base, or maybe in the title of the organization to create an accurate project name too. Now the project URL and the NN key, it's now asking for that. So this is the street address, and this is the key to get inside our Supabase project. It's asking to retrieve those. So let's grab them. And now our Supabase project is created. And here is kind of like the ball's in our court now. We need to create this file called the environment file with the following content. So there's the Vite Supabase URL, the URL, the street address, and then this is our key. Okay, so to create the environment file, all we gotta do is right click into our project root. If you can't find your project right now, you can also click on this button. You can click on this primary sidebar here, or you can press Command B on your keyboard to open that up, yeah? And then here in the root, we're gonna create a new file that's called .env. So this file is gonna store our environment variables. And all we have to do is copy the content that was given to us by our Cursor chat, paste that in here, and here we go. So you should have your address and key set up properly now. Okay, don't forget to save this file. So press Command S or Control S on your keyboard to save it. Nice work. We did just go through all of these as well. Tools that Cursor's used are get cost. trying to check if creating that project is going to incur any costs, and it created the project for us. Well done. And oh, looks like we've got this that we can respond to set up the database. Okay, to set up my database, Cursor used a set of tool calls to check the cost of creating a project. It also checked again which Supabase organizations it had access to, and then it checked the cost of creating a project, and then it created the project itself. For example, oh, I feel like we just did that. Yeah, something that I do so often. I get so excited that I end up answering 2 things at once. So let's, the result was a project, was a created project in Supabase, and variables, environment variables, i.e. the project's URL, the project's address, and a key to access it that we can save in an environment file. Well done. So let's go ahead, select done for that. Cool. Let's find our Supabase project and just double check that it's been created well. So to check where that project's been set up, we're gonna head over to this link in your browser. It takes you to your Supabase dashboard. All right, and what can we see when we're there? We're gonna click on your organization to access your projects. So let's click into that. And select your project. Do you see that? Let's open the project dashboard. Ta-da! This confirms that Cursor's just set up the project for us through the Supabase MCP. We didn't need to lift a finger in our dashboard to do this. And you know what? The NextSound music app, doesn't this look familiar? I hope it does to you. Over here, I remember on the create project, look at that, the parameters, it says name, NextSound music app. Exactly like what we're seeing here. So that's all great evidence pointing to the fact that Cursor, using the Supabase MCP, has just created this project for us. Well done us. You know, I'm gonna take a screenshot of this because it looks so cool. That looks amazing, doesn't it? Nice. Okay. Whoa, I think I got jumped to the end of this project, so I'm going to go back up. Okay. And we have just created the environment file. I got very trigger happy there. And if you're thinking, hey, like this is feeling a little shady, you know, why can't Cursor create that file for me? Those are all very, very good questions. So environment files and environment variables can often store secrets, which are sensitive information. For example, it is sensitive information that we now have a direct link to our database alongside a key that lets you access that database. And think about what people can do once they have access. In our case, Cursor can actually create projects, it can delete projects, it can create tables, it can do all sorts of things in our database. So if someone else has access to, you know, your keys and all of the sensitive information, they can start to really build things or create things or delete things that you don't want them to do. That's why environment files typically are out of bounds for AI agents like Cursor to edit and create for you. It's considered a very good security practice that actually we manage our environment files, environment variables, and of course the web app will be able to run, because our computers will still be able to load the environment file when it's running our web app, but we won't let Cursor actually edit that file. So that's a little tip on environment files. And if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. Or if you're tuning in after this live, you can also use this ask to ask more questions about environment files. Cool. Okay, so now that we've done all of that, we've saved the environment file. We can now answer a few questions about what we created and why it's important. Okay, so an environment file or a .env file stores sensitive information like API keys, access keys, secrets, addresses to databases. For NextSound, it contains the address and access key to our Supabase project. This is important because it lets us give our NextSound web app access to our database. Okay, in this case, we really need that file because we need our code base to have that information, the address and the URL, for it to connect to the database. And that connection to the database needs to happen for us to be able to update the database based on things you do in the web app. So when you click on things in the web app, how do we make sure the database is still getting updated? Well, this environment file makes sure that your web app is connected to your database. So here is a bit more information about Cursor and using environment files if you'd like to learn more as well. Well, we're now up to step 3, team. Okay, it's gonna get pretty meaty now. It's gonna get really fun because we're now going to give Cursor a complex task, which is to build a complete likes feature for our music app. This is going to involve creating a new table in our database. We're going to update the app's code. So we're actually going to write the code, implement the code for a like button on top of every single track. And then we're going to write the logic to update the like count when you click on that button. So there are a few things we're going to be implementing in this step, and let's do it together, okay? So in this step, and I'm again going to separate things out so we have, hey, that's not what we want, is it? That's not what we want. Okay, so in this step, what are we going to do, team? In this step, we're going to build or implement a likes feature for our web app. The likes feature, we will prompt Cursor to do this. We will Cursor prompt. Oops. We will prompt Cursor to do this. And it will be implemented over 3 stages. Well, maybe not stages. And the feature will be implemented, over 3 parts. 1, there is a UI update. So there is a like button on top of every track. And then there's also the creation of a, the creation of a table in our Supabase project that will store information about how many likes each track has. What's the third thing? The third thing is the backend logic that connects interactions on the web app, you know, clicking on the button, to database updates. Updating the number of likes. Nice. All right, all done. So we're gonna give Cursor that prompt now. It's gonna be a pretty intense prompt because Cursor's got a bit of things to do. You know, those three things are each pretty, I would say, those three things are pretty concrete, like tasks. It's not just like, hey, can you fix this line of code? It's like creating three separate things. So when you have a bigger kind of task or mission for Cursor, it is very helpful to be more detailed in your prompt. So you're going to see a more detailed prompt coming up, but don't be alarmed. We're going to break down that prompt together too. All right, and let's open a new chat in Cursor, you know, to set us up too. I know, a new chat is it's just a little bit extra work compared to typing into this existing chat. But it is always very helpful to open a new chat whenever you've got a new task, so that Cursor always has the most, I would say, it doesn't get confused by a lot of context that happened in your existing conversations. You know, these existing chats, these existing conversations can influence Cursor's performance a lot. So if we keep things clean, create a new chat for every single new task, we're just making sure that Cursor stays focused, doesn't get distracted by what we just talked about before. All right, so here is the prompt that we're gonna ask, that we're gonna use to ask Cursor to implement this feature. All right, so we're gonna implement the likes feature, and it's gonna add a heart button on every track. Okay, so each track starts with 0 likes. You know, we're not gonna have any favorites yet. Okay, every track is gonna start the same, just 0 likes. And we're gonna set up a Supabase table that stores the number of likes each track has. This environment file already exists. So there's already an environment file with the Supabase URL and the anon key, so the address and the key or the access key to our database already exists. We also say explicitly to use the Supabase MCP to set up a table. So let's press send. Okay, so it's creating a to-do list now. It's trying to figure out how we can implement the feature and also the connection to our database. Ooh, it's already trying to read the environment file to get Supabase credentials. Oh no, it's just listing our projects now. It's trying to figure out what projects we've got in our account. Let's run that. Okay, and it's trying to list them. Let's have a look. Let's click run. Let's click run again. Great, I can see there's already a Supabase project called NextSound Music App. Let me check the current tables and then create the likes table. So it's gonna check, you know, what tables do you already have? In this case, we don't have any. And it's gonna create the table for tracking likes. Okay, the project exists but has no tables yet. That's true. Let me create the likes table. First, let me check if there's a .environment file by looking for it with a different approach. Yeah, so as we mentioned before, environment files are typically hidden to our LLM, so it's usually a little bit harder for them to find it. But in this case, we explicitly told Cursor, here is my environment file, it exists. So that, I think that helps it with using your environment file a bit faster than if it didn't. And now we're going to create a likes table in Supabase using our MCP. Look at that, it's creating a track likes table to store like counts for each track. Look at that. And there's even a query like this to help us with creating the table. Whoa, enable row level security. Cool. Okay, and there is a custom hook to manage the like state. So whether something is liked or not liked, there's something to track it. And we can also verify that the table was created correctly. So let's run that too. Awesome. Usually when you see this command, which is cursor wanting to run npm run dev, you know that the feature is now built. It's now doing its own testing on whether or not the web app can still run. So let's click run. Let me also create a simple test to verify the likes functionality by inserting some test data. Let me verify it was inserted correctly. The test data has been inserted successfully. Now let me create a summary of what I've implemented. So it looks like the likes feature's just been implemented. That was very fast, actually. We're gonna have to double check that it all works okay. So we're not gonna just take Cursor's word for it. We're gonna be critical thinkers and do our own testing and see whether or not the likes feature is working. Okay. Now we do have a few questions actually to answer before we get there. So stay with me. We're gonna quickly run through a few reflection questions and then get to the testing part. All right, so the feature we're building, was that a typo, team? Is that a typo? Oh, it's I'm, okay, so that's not a typo. So the feature we're building is the likes feature. This will let users favorite tracks in the web app. Instead of manually setting up the database, we're prompting Cursor to set up the database for us using natural language prompts. Very nice. Okay, so we have just gone through this, but Cursor is using apply migration. It created the like tracks or track likes table. And you know, you might run into a situation where Cursor isn't even asking for your permission, it's just going and doing things. This will happen if you have been, instead of clicking run, if you've been clicking this one, add something to allow list. That basically just lets Cursor start to run the same command but without asking for permissions next time. Now, it is a very, very convenient feature if you trust Cursor to always do the right thing, or you feel like it's not a big deal if it, you know, messes up a little bit. You know, it's not like a, maybe it's not like a live product with 300, you know, users yet, so you're okay with it maybe overstepping and doing something you don't want it to do sometimes. You know, maybe that's when adding something to allow list is okay. But for this project, we do highly recommend that you are always monitoring what commands or what tool calls it's doing, so you're in control of how Cursor is using that Supabase MCP. Maximum learning, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so now we've got this little question as well. So how was Cursor implementing the feature? What tools did it use? Oh, I know we're backtracking a little bit, but these are some great questions to answer to just make sure we understood what was going on. Okay, so Cursor's plan for implementing the feature is to first set up the database in Supabase. You can even go back up in your chat history to understand how it did it. So I like to just drag it out in full like this so I can really read it. But you know, here is its to-do list. You can even see that it checked for an environment file and it examined the code base structure. Oh, cool. What else did it do? And then it went to our Supabase project. Okay, cool. So it checked whether or not we've got tables in our project, and it said no tables, then let's create one from scratch and use our environment files variables to create that table. Very interesting. And then once that table was created, then it created a service, which is a piece of code within your code base that basically helps you with handling how the likes function is going to work. Like on click, let's, you know, heart or fill in this heart inside the track card. Let's update the like count by 1. And this one manages the like state. whether or not something is liked or not liked. Okay, so we've kind of got a gist of it. How it created this feature is to first analyze the code base to understand its structure. Then it set up then it investigated the structure of our Supabase project in case any tables already exist. Since no tables exist, it then created a new one from scratch. And what else did it do? So the likes table was created, and then created the service to handle the functionality. Then it created a service within the code base to handle the likes functionality, plus wrote the code for handling different like states. Okay, so what is the final thing it did? It actually updated the track hunt component to include the heart button too. Okay, finally it updated the track card component, which means adding the heart button on top of every track. Cursor used MCP tool calls. What did it do? Do you remember? So Cursor used MCP tool calls like list project or list tables to understand our existing Supabase setup. Then what other tool calls did it use? Do you remember? Let's see. It also used apply migration to create a new table. Very nice. All right, is that all clear, team? Are we feeling good and ready? So that was a big answer, but great reflection on like, how the heck did Cursor do that? So let's run the app ourselves. We're going to run the command npm install in our terminal. So we've got all of the dependencies that our project needs to run. Now we go through the concept of dependencies pretty in a bit more detail in our Cursor project, so I'd recommend checking that out if you're wanting to know more. But in short, dependencies are like external pieces of code that our web app or that our computer needs in order to run that web app. So when we created the core NextSound code, we didn't truly write every single thing from scratch. We could pull from existing libraries. That meant the UI for NextSound or certain functionalities of NextSound was easier to write ourselves. Like it simply was using external pieces of code to help us. So because we were using external pieces of code, we're gonna need to make sure that you've got those external pieces of code downloaded into your computer so you could actually run the web app. Otherwise, the web app's not gonna look the same. So we're gonna run the command to install those dependencies now. If you want to hide your AI chat so you can focus on your terminal, you can just click on this AI pane button on the top right. So it's gone now, and we can just click on it to let it come back. Okay, so the command to run is called npm install. I'm going to run clear so I can clear my terminal and it looks fresh. And now let's run npm install. Okay, and off it goes with installing those dependencies. Okay. Now, if you see something like this, like moderate severity vulnerability, don't worry, don't panic. It doesn't mean that your web app can't run. It just means that there's probably one of those external pieces of code needs a bit of fixing. But you can totally move on and run the next command, which is npm run dev. So let's click on npm run dev. Let's run that in our terminal. There we go. Now our terminal says the web app is now ready to run, and you can just visit this link, to visit your web app. Shall we? Let's click on that. Okay. So if you ran into an error trying to run npm run dev, that is totally normal. No need to panic. All you gotta do is run and if you run into an error, it's probably like a version error with Node.js, and we've got detailed instructions on how you can resolve that. All right, so we've just run npm run dev. Shall we go ahead and see what's next? Step 4, we're here now on the testing of our feature. Oh, we made it. Well, I know we've already made it to testing the likes feature, but one thing that could be very handy is, let's go back into Supabase and just check. Hey, it told us that it created a whole table. Shall we just verify it exists? When you're ready, let's actually go back into our NextSound project and let us, oh, it's already here. Do you see? Tables 1. What could it be? You can click into the tables link here if you'd like, and it takes you straight into your table editor, which lets you view what tables you've got. Okay? So very clearly you can see, oh my gosh, in our table editor, there's a table called track likes. Click on that table, and you can see even some of the mock data that it used to test the feature, or like the test whether or not the table is working. It's still here. So, oh, very cool. So we've got some sort of table going on with a like count. Clearly all of this data was created just like a little bit of time ago. Oh, this is not my time zone, is it? So it was created just like 12 minutes ago. Okay, cool. Now let's visit now let's get into testing, shall we? So in this step, we're gonna test liking the tracks. We're gonna test whether or not our database, we can ask it questions, in the cursor. And then we're gonna also update our database just using our cursor chat. All right, so in this final step, we're going to test liking tracks in our web app. Then we'll test whether we can query tracks via, not query tracks, but query our database, i.e. talk to our database via our cursor chat too. Finally, we'll test whether we can update. So update and query are two different things. Query is like you're just talking to your database to get new information. Updating is like you're adding new data into your database. So that's like another level up. You're not just like passively interacting with it by asking it questions. You're gonna level up into, hey, I'm gonna actually change the data that's in this database. It's gonna be cool. So, anticipation. There was so much anticipation leading up to this, wasn't there? Because we're now ready to test the live application. I've got the application open over here. Let's scroll down, have a look. Do you see what I see? Look at that. So now there's a like button on top of every single track. Tick, that looks good. Well, we've got a whole checklist of things that we can run to double check we've got, the feature set up properly. Okay, so I've liked it. Okay, I've tried clicking a like on this track. Did it update its... I don't think it updated its like count, I have to say. I think that part's not working. So when you go into, a track and you hit the like button, the count should increase to 1 and the heart should turn red. I don't think that's happened for us yet. We've got the heart turning red, but we don't have the like. Oh, we do have something here. We do have a like count thing going on over here at the bottom, but I don't think it's working well, is it? Yeah, I mean, I'm liking things and I can see it turn red, but this like count is not going to 1. And honestly, it'd be nice if the like count was a little bit more obvious. Shall we try unliking a track? So let's hover over the like button one more time. This time let's click on it again and see if it unlikes. Oh, that worked. Unlike. Oh, okay, so unliking seems to work. The heart has lost its color. So that's pretty good, but we're not fully there yet with this feature. So let us do a bit of tinkering, shall we, with cursor. Something isn't working. The app is loading, so this is fine. Heart icons are appearing, at least, but the clicks aren't working, or the counts aren't updating. So we can check your browser console for errors. You can go here, click inspect, and click on your console. Ooh, so what happens when I click like? Ooh, okay, so there is an error when you like a track. There is a type error. Supabase raw is not a function. Oh, seems like this seems to be the root of our problems. If you're new to console, by the way, you can actually ask about the browser console. What is a browser console? Let's have a look. Let's send that off. What is a browser console? How can I use it to debug an error where likes in my web app aren't working? So Browser Console is a developer tool. It's built into your browser, and basically it lets you see messages that are being sent from your web app into the browser. So if your web app is failing to load something, it will probably tell your browser through a console message. So it is essential for debugging web apps because of that very handy functionality. Okay, so we've gotten a pretty clear error message through the console. So let's copy that message and let's pass that message back to cursor and just say, hi, here's the error. We don't see the like count updating. And here is the error message that we see in our developer console. So back in cursor, off we go. We can minimize your terminal by clicking on this little arrow. Okay, so it's smaller now. Open up your AI chat once more. And here, because this is relevant information for the error I'm about to write, we can keep this chat. We can just put this message in here. So the message to cursor is, please troubleshoot this error with me. I can heart tracks and they turn red, but I don't see a like count updating. There is a small heart icon at the bottom of each track card that seems to track the number of likes, but it's too small, and I'd like to see that number right next to the heart, let's say. You can also say right under the heart. So let's do that. What else do we want to say? I have opened the developer console. Here is the error message whenever we like or unlike a track. Let's send that off and see what cursor has to say. I see the issue. The error is because supabase.raw is not a valid function in the JavaScript client. Let me fix this error and also improve the UI as you requested. Okay, so it seems to be updating the error in both the like and the unlike methods. So hopefully that just means that when you like and unlike something now, the count is going to be working. Okay, it also double checks whether our database operations are working correctly. And it's also trying to run the development server by itself to see whether or not there are any other errors with building this project. Okay, well, it's telling us that this is now fixed. Shall we just go into our web app and just double check that? Cool. So typically when you update the code for the web app, it hot updates or like hot reloads, which means it just reloads and refreshes itself automatically. You might see that already. We're already seeing that UI update. We already see the count of likes looking a lot better now. But you know, if you like, it's always worth a cheeky refresh. Okay. And here we go. What happens when I like a track? Let's see. Oh, nice. We can definitely see that count updating now. Let's like this one. Very cool. Let's try liking Cruel Summer. Yeah, it goes up from 12 to 13. Very nice. What happens when we unlike a track? Let's see. All right, it went back. And it's no longer red. Well done. Looks like this is working okay. So let's upload a screenshot of NextSound with heart icons. It should show the heart icons on track cards. So I'm going to hover over one so that we can see. And we can take a screenshot. You know what? I'm gonna like this too, so it's obvious. All right, let's put that screenshot into our web app. Next, what happens when you click on the heart icon? When we click the heart icon, we could see the heart icon turning red from a static white color. That tells us that the track is liked. Hey, very nice. We can also see the number of likes increment by 1. Behind the scenes, the database is updating the like count for the track by 1 too. All right, so great. How can we double check that the data is being saved? So let's go to our single source of truth, which is our Supabase database. Let's head back into your database in your browser. Okay, and again, let's click into our organization where we've got our projects. And then from our projects, we can see our table. And here is the track likes table. Oh, look at that. You can see it already looks very different from how it looked like maybe 10, 20 minutes ago, because the like count is now reflecting how many likes these tracks have now that we've gone and added some more likes and we unliked. So it looks like, okay. So in the left sidebar, we select table editor, select the track likes table. So the data in the table should match the likes you see in the web app. This confirms our front end, the like button on top of every track, and back end, which is the database, are perfectly in sync. How good is that? So when you look at this, it might feel a little bit confusing because we just see track IDs. There's no track name. It'd be nice if we could see the track name. So if you'd like, you can pick a track ID that's in your database and try to search for that in your code base. Does that track ID match to a track in NextSound? Let's have a go. Let's copy this track ID. Let's go back into our code base. And you can, again, close your AI chat. Let's focus on the Explore here, where you can search for, this ID. And you can see there is an ID, and it matches to a track. that is Billie Eilish's Birds of a Feather. So now that we can see it says Birds of a Feather, you know, which has the track ID, has 6 likes. Let's double check that in our web app. There we go, Birds of a Feather has 6 likes. So, you know, which track has 12 likes? Okay, Cruel Summer does. Let's see if that's true. So let's copy this, paste it in here, and look at that. Cruel Summer over here has that exact ID. So that's a great way to just verify that the IDs you see in your database matches up with the ID of the same track in your code base. Okay, well done. Well done. So how does your Supabase database store data? Ooh, I don't think we talked about that yet. So this is going to be interesting to answer. Let's just give it a go. So in Supabase, the track likes table stores. This track likes table stores the current status of liked tracks. Each row represents a track that has received likes. We verified that the web app's connection with our database works by liking new tracks in the web app, then checking that a new row appeared in the database, and then checking that the track ID referenced in the database matches up with the same track in our code base. Okay, very cool. And what are the limitations with your database? Is there anything you noticed that you thought could be improved? Well, one limitation you could talk about is that the track IDs aren't intuitive. It's hard to tell from a glance which track is being referenced just based on a randomly generated ID token. So after this project, we could improve our database by adding a new column for track name. You know, that could be fun. Makes it a lot easier for you to verify whether or not your database is showing the most up-to-date information. Well done. Okay, so we're almost done with the main project steps. We just have to do a bit of querying. So the Supabase console is useful. You know, you can use it to view your database live. But imagine being able to get the insights into your database without having to leave cursor. Imagine if you're just coding and you've got your cursor tapped to your right and you don't even need to leave your cursor IDE and like go open a new tab and type in supabase.com/dashboard and like open up your table to read what's going on in your database. Imagine instead of having to do all that, all you have to do is open a new cursor chat and just ask a question about your database and have cursor answer it. So that's the querying that we're about to do. Let's ask cursor to fetch some information for us. In a new cursor AI chat, let's type the prompt, what tracks are in NextSound, use the Supabase MCP. So we're going to open a new chat. Again, if you're like, oh my gosh, where am I? How do I open a new chat? Simply always use these like top right icons to help you with hiding things you don't need and opening the things you do need. Okay, so let's open the AI pane, that's the cube. And you can close this code file if you don't need it anymore. Just click on that X. And let's open up a new chat because, you know, we have a new task that's not really relevant to the previous one. Ideally, you should be able to just ask cursor at any point what tracks are currently liked in NextSound. It shouldn't need some context to answer this question. So let's see how cursor fares. Okay, so off it goes with understanding our code base, and it's probably going to run a few tool calls to get to our database. Oh, there we go. It's already listing our Supabase project, so let's allow that. And it's going to run another MCP tool call. Have a go. Okay, you can see it's now inside our NextSound music app project, and now it's going to check the database tables. It's getting really close. Okay, that's pretty fast. So it can see that there's a track likes table with 5 rows. Let me query the table. All right, so it's now executing some SQL, so it can share with us what are tracks that have received likes, ordered by popularity. You've got Cruel Summer, it's got 12 likes, and if you're confused, you're like, we didn't like it 12 times. That's because that was some of the mock data that Cursor put into the database to test whether or not the connection was working. So it's got 12 likes, as it was 9 likes, Birds of a Feather has 6 likes. Isn't that so cool? It's so accurate. It's just so accurate and so like, it's just incredible that you don't even need to leave your Cursor IDE anymore to check out what's going on in your database. What a fantastic, useful feature. Okay, so you just query a database without writing any code. So when we ask Cursor, which are the most liked tracks in NextSound, Cursor uses Supabase MCP to query our liked tracks table. The final answer it gave me was a formatted list in most liked order. Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift was the most liked track with 12 likes, and it's set at the top of the list. Well done. Cool. Okay, so let's keep on going. And next up, we've got updating the database with natural language. Now this is the time for us to actually tell our tell Cursor we want to set the number of votes or set the number of likes for a track to a certain number. So now we're changing the database. We're not just asking what's going on in there. We're like changing a number that's in there. So let's type in the following prompt to make that happen. You can again create a new chat, or you can put it in your existing chat. My advice is to always use a new chat for a new question. So let's update the number of votes for Espresso, an existing track, to 20 votes. Use a Supabase MCP to do that. Okay, so it has the Espresso track ID, and it wants to just, again, check your Supabase projects, so we're going to allow that. Let's run that. And it's finding our table again. I can see there's a track likes table with a like count column. Now let me check if there's already a record for the Espresso track. Doesn't have a record yet in the table, so it's just updated the track to 20 votes. All done. I think that was in less than a minute, wasn't it? Shall we refresh our web app and just see whether or not it's updated itself? Okay. Oh, no way. Look at that. Espresso showing 20 likes. Oh, that's so cool. Just by prompting Cursor. I mean, the coolest part about this, right, is that yes, a lot of apps right now can simply just adjust or manually put into the code like 20 for Espresso, but that's not what our Cursor agent did. It didn't just go into our code base and just write a 20 next to Espresso. It actually did this by going into our database. So let's go into our database and let's refresh our table's data to see that it actually went into Supabase and updated a whole database, which the web app is now pulling and updating to show 20 likes for espresso. Well done, us. Looks amazing, doesn't it? Oh yes, let's go and select done for tasks that we've completed. And let's go ahead and just verify, yep, we can see 20 likes for espresso. We can see that the database has updated itself. And nice work, you've just updated a database record all within your cursor chat. Proud of us. So we're gonna take a screenshot of espresso having 20 likes in our web app. Okay, and let's put that in our task here. Next, so how did Cursor update the vote count for espresso? How did it do that? Aside from querying the database, we also use Cursor to update the number of likes that won for one of the tracks. Cursor did this by using, again, tool calls to using the tool call. Oh, which tool call was it specifically? Let's investigate. So it was a tool called execute SQL. It used execute SQL to check, are there any tracks in the track likes table where the ID is, the ID for espresso, and it says, okay, there were no results. So espresso clearly doesn't have a record yet, and I'll insert a new record. So what was the record? It says insert into the table called track likes. Let's add, for the track ID, this, which maps to espresso, the like count should be 20. Awesome. So it used the tool called execute SQL to query our database and confirm. Apologies. So did that to confirm that our track likes table currently doesn't store any likes for espresso. Then a second execute SQL tool call was run to, this time, what did it do? This time it added a new row to the table, i.e. espresso 20 likes. We verified the update by checking the database. Oh, and the web app. Both showed espresso with a like count of 20. Whether via a UI update or a update to a cell in the liked tracks table. What did you think of using Cursor to update your database? Being able to update data with natural language is powerful because you can stay in flow in Cursor without having to leave the IDE. I could we could now do something that used to take, you know, either CLI commands or going into the Supabase dashboard to do. We could use this to maybe, for example, we could use this skill to, you know, let's say do things like clear databases, write test data, and revert changes to data much faster than before. Okay, well done everyone for completing the main steps for today's project. That is fantastic. We've done a great job setting up a web app with a live database. If this was your first time using MCPs and your first time using Cursor and your first time using Supabase, you've just like leveled up in a huge way. And if this is not your first time using these tools and you chose to do this project, wanted to say a big well done and good on you for continuing to build your skills. Now, in the spirit of continuous, always learning, we actually have a secret mission for us, which is to extend the app with user authentication. Now, we tested this project with a learner, shout out Sean, earlier this week, and he was like, man, this was a huge unlock for me. This secret mission is insane. So, if you've ever wondered how you can set up logins for your web app very, very quickly, here is a sneak peek into how you can do it. Okay, we're gonna do this with the Supabase MCP, and you don't even need to set up much beyond, you know, what we've already got. So, a true secret mission, you know, we get to do a bit of a level up and use our existing setup. Cool. So we're going to extend the app with user authentication. Now you don't need to know what authentication means before doing the secret mission. Let's go through it together. Okay, so you can learn about user authentication here. Okay, so what does user authentication mean? Can you share 3 examples of user auth in popular apps today? Be concise. Let's have a look. Okay, so user authentication basically means verifying your users, and it typically just means your users have accounts while they're in their web app. Of course, while we've been using NextSound so far, we never really had to create an account in NextSound. You could just go ahead and just start clicking and liking tracks straight away. But if you had user auth set up, that could mean that users now have to create an account with your application to start liking tracks. Ooh, what a cool level up. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're used to having to log into apps, you know, log into Google, Facebook, Spotify. But, you know, although sometimes we're like, oh my God, another username or password to remember, having your own account gives you powerful features, you know. Google, having an account means you have your own private Gmail inbox or search history. Facebook, you now have your own private feed. Spotify, I mean, you now have access to your own library of music. So being able to set up user auth definitely opens up this whole new era or milestone for what you can do with your app. So let's go into our project steps, shall we? Sorry, I'm just gonna quickly double check everything looks okay. Cool. All right. So I'm super excited for the secret mission, and I'm just going to make sure that everything looks all good. So 1 second, team, I think this live is just going a little slow for me, so I'm just gonna quit a few apps in the background and so that things are running smoothly. I hope that's okay, team. Almost there, team. Cool. Yeah, I'm just quitting a few apps in the background, team. Hope that's all good. Alright. I think we're all good now. Okay, we're ready to go. Very cool. So, we've got user authentication, which we now know is about creating an account, in your web app. And we'll also guide Cursor to set up Supabase Auth, which is kind of like a feature in Supabase that helps us create authentication. But we'll also create user-related tables and protect the data with a concept called row-level security. Row-level security it basically means that users who have one account won't be able to affect the data of other users that hold other accounts. So if I have, if I log in, I can only like tracks that affect my login and my kind of like history. I can't go and change someone else's like history. That's basically what row-level security does. And Nitin has also added an awesome comment in the chat. Just started working on the solutions architect projects this week, and I've got to say you guys are doing awesome work. Really appreciate how much value you are creating for the community. Thank you so much. What a sweet message. We're gonna save that, Nitin. What is your favorite project so far in the solutions architect roadmap? Okay, so in this final step, in the secret mission, we will use Cursor to add a complete user authentication system. We'll also test the system. And verify that we can tie likes to specific accounts. Very cool. Okay, so currently the likes feature is anonymous, and we'll make it personal by adding user accounts. We'll prompt Cursor to implement a complete authentication system, which is a bit of a big one. So we're gonna give Cursor a detailed prompt to help it out. Let's give it some really good instructions. How are we gonna give it good instructions? We're gonna break down the prompt right after we send it. So I'm gonna open up a new chat, and you know what, let's just clear out these old chats as well to clean up our chat panel. I'm gonna add in this new chat. Here we go, and off it goes with setting up Supabase authentication. It's gonna take a little bit of time, so we're gonna let it do that. Oh, it seems to be waiting for approval right now. Is it? Okay, it seems to be asking to check our projects, so let's run that. Oh, okay. I was going to break down this prompt together, but sometimes it might just jump in and just ask for approval, which we'll give when it's doing that. So here, the Supabase authentication is a feature where we're gonna again, kind of very similar to what we did for the likes feature. One, update the UI. In this case, the sign in and sign up modal needs a UI, so we'll need to implement that. And then two, we're gonna need to make sure that there is some sort of database update so that there are tables or Supabase components that enables us to, track what users we've got. Clearly, because likes are very different things to users, we'll need to create some new tables dedicated to tracking our users. This one is a unique one. There's row-level security policies. This just makes sure, again, users can only see and modify their own likes. They won't be able to see likes attached to other users or change other people's like history. And finally, we want to tell Cursor that the environment file already exists, so it doesn't go and try to create one. Okay, so it looks like it's waiting for approval for something. Let's have a look. Okay, so it's waiting for approval to apply migration. Okay, off it goes, and it's now wanting to again create a function to automatically create a user profile if someone signs up. That's nice. Yeah, so previously it was setting up all of the tables related to user authentication. Can you think about what that table will need to track? If I say, hey, let's set up tables related to user authentication, what should those tables contain? Clearly, the Supabase MCP or our LLM is thinking about that for us, but it's a good idea to have a guess ourselves. What kind of tables would you need? What kind of information would you need to know if someone has an account or if the user is logged in? So those are some good questions to kind of jog your thinking a little bit on, what you think Cursor is creating in the background. All right, so so now it's updating the like service to work with the new user-based like system. Oh, it's even going in and changing the code for the like system to make sure that you have to have an account in order to like something. And now there's also a track card component change. It says it's going to update the heart button to show different states based on authentication. So I guess if you're logged out, you shouldn't be able to see any likes. You shouldn't be able to see any red hearts. Very cool. So now it is checking if there are any issues with the current implementation. It's going to run a quick test. Cool. Okay, and it's trying to check if tables were created. Cool. It also checks that the tables are created with RLS enabled. Very nice. So if it's doing all those checks, it must mean that if we were to visit our table ourselves, we should be able to find them. Shall we? There we go. So we've got two new tables, one called user profiles. I'm guessing that's to track what users we've got. And then the other one to track likes attached to different users. Okay, so Cursor's giving us a very happy update that authentication is all done now. Very cool. Well, let's go into our project guide and see what we should do next. Okay, so now we've got sign in and sign up functionality. Let's let's start up our development server again. Although to be honest, if we're using Vite, the hot reloading that I mentioned means that I think it's probably restarted already. Shall we be cheeky and just give it a go? Try see if there's a sign in button. Oh, we do have a sign in button. It also created a sign up button, which I thought was kind of cute. So we've got both, ¿Por qué no los dos? Why not have both? And select the sign up link Very cool. Let's sign up. Yo, create an account to start upvoting. Yo, this is looking pretty slick. So you can create an account, you can enter in your email and your password and click sign up. So, okay, this is an unsecured HTTP page. It can be potentially seen and changed by others. I'm gonna click OK to that since it's a test for a local web app. And then I'm just gonna use a suggested password. Yeah, let's just create a handy little password. And let's just click the sign up button. All right, check your email to confirm your account. Oh my gosh, off we go, aren't we? I'm gonna open up my emails on a separate tab and just check whether or not I've got an email. Let's see. Oh, I did. Okay, this is cool. This is cool. It says that confirm you would like to sign up as a user. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna confirm my email and then back into localhost. Logged in. Oh, look at that. I can see that there's a view profile, or I could see my upvoted songs. Interesting. And now I can see all of these hearts with likes. So isn't it so cool that because we've got a database that always has like our source of truth around the number of likes, these likes have not changed, even though our web app has updated again, because the data for number of likes is connected to a remote database. It didn't clear the number of likes that are in here. The number of likes is still the same. It looks cool. So let's try liking a few tracks. I'm gonna like Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. There's Dua Lipa song. What about this Metro Boomin song? Okay, so I've liked 3 tracks now. I'm gonna like another track that seems pretty popular. It's like Espresso. Very cool. So we can see that the like counter is working for both existing tracks with likes and also completely new tracks that are getting their first like. So if we were to refresh our data, there we go. Yeah, we can see that there are definitely 3 new tracks now with just one like, and they've just gotten added to our like count. Our track likes table. What's more interesting or important maybe for this project though, and I think our project guide is going to touch on that now, is if we were to visit our user profiles table, you should be able to see a entry for the user account we just created. So let's visit user profiles. And there you go. You can see your own profile in here. Excellent. There you go. And you can now also select user track likes. And now you can see a record for the track you just liked, which should contain your user ID and your track ID. So your user ID, like this. View the referencing record. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. I should be looking at user track likes. So it says, which user ID has liked which track. So this user ID and all of them are the same because they all point to me. Natasha has liked this track, this track, this track, this track. Okay. So there are a few kind of terminologies that come with using databases. One of them is that you've got rows and columns for a database, but there are also things like foreign keys that can help map or connect databases together. In this case, the user ID value is a foreign key that points back to the users table. So you've got the user ID here. It is a foreign key that maps to another table. So if you click on view referencing record, clearly it says auth.users shares this foreign key. Look at that, it shares this ID. So because they share that ID, they're kind of like connected. You can map your users to the likes that they've got. You can even click open table if you'd like to see that user table. Very cool. So this is another, clearly this is like another schema that's happening in the background. And you can always ask our ask feature around, what is user.auth? What does it mean? That it's under the auth schema. Because you might notice that it's under another schema called auth, whereas the tables we've created are under public. Okay, very interesting. So yeah, auth and schemas basically help to logically separate authentication data from our application's other data. So what does a schema called public mean? That's our next question. Okay, so we've played around a little bit with the relationship between our databases and authentication. So let us also go ahead and just check our last question in our secret mission. Okay, cool. So let's take a screenshot for the user track likes table showing the record for the track we liked. What information is stored in the user profiles table versus the user track likes table? All right, so the user profile table stores the users that are authenticated, i.e. have an account in the NextSound web app, while the user track likes table stores the specific tracks that have likes. Each row equals a single track that has been liked by a unique user. This basically means that if a track has been liked multiple times, it's going to have multiple rows, each row for each combination of track and user. And the same thing, like if a user has liked many tracks, each of those likes is still its own row. Cool. I just thought it was very interesting that the question we previously asked around, what does a schema called public mean, has an answer now too. A schema named public is a default schema where tables, views, and other database objects are created, if you don't explicitly mention another one. Another one. All right, so how does the database know which user liked which track? This is an advanced question. Just have a go and make sure to use our handy Ask Chat if you get stuck. So the database matches a user to the tracks they like by matching the user track, I think it's called, what is it called? User track likes table to the user.auth table. User.auth is a different table in the auth schema that tracks all users and their user IDs. And there's a reference here because it points back to user ID or like auth.users. Supabase uses this relationship to match each like to a specific user. Okay. This makes it possible to know for every like who liked it and which track they liked, because every single row in that table now has to have those two pieces of information, the track ID and the user ID. And because that user ID maps back to the auth.users table, it must map back to a legit user. So that really helps us, the database, know exactly which user liked which track. So it really is, the art of structuring a database. Yeah, really great learning. Okay, so in our cursor chat, again, we can continue on the power of using the cursor MCP by querying our user database in a new AI chat. So let's do that. Who are my users? Use the Supabase MCP. Oh, sorry about that. That looked messy. It's going to ask for a tool call to list what projects we've got. And then it can see that you've got a user table. It's going to try and look for the table you have user-related tables. Let me query the user data to show you who your users are. So there is a query that looks for all of the users in the auth.users table. Okay, let me check the user activity by looking at their track likes to understand their engagement. Whoa, they even look into engagement. So I found that it has one active user, that's myself, and even their activity, like how many likes in total I've liked, how many tracks I've liked in total. So you have one registered user, they've liked 4 different tracks showing good engagement. All activity happened on a certain date, suggesting this might be during development or testing. Whoa, that's very accurate. So let me ask a more complex question now. We're going to ask, which tracks has the user liked? So we've got these IDs here, but we want to know the track names. Show me the track names. All right, not just the IDs. We want to know the actual names. So now it's going to first see what tracks your users have liked. Let's get that information out first. And once that's done, which happened very quickly. Oh, it seems to, I don't think it's done the job. Okay, so the track IDs appear to be Spotify track IDs. We can try to be explicit. We can say in a new chat maybe the context got a bit confusing. So let's just say, which tracks do the following IDs map to? Let's see. Okay. So you can also see that there is some user authentication work that we can double check again at the end of this project, which is pretty helpful. Okay. So when a new user signs up or logs in through your application, Supabase automatically creates a record for them in its built-in auth users table. This table securely stores authentication data like their email address, the user ID, other relevant information, and then your custom user profiles table links to these accounts using the unique user ID as a foreign key. By keeping authentication and application profile information closely linked, Supabase is enabling secure user management. So very similar to what we've discovered on our own, there is that auth users table that's kind of like the determining source of truth around who all your users are, and then all the other tables you create yourself points to that table, almost as like, okay, I can verify that that user is real because it maps to a user in our source of truth table. You can even visit that source of truth table inside your authentication as well, and there's like that. This is a list of all your users. Imagine how satisfying this would be when you've got 20, 30, 100 users. Lots of fun. Now, it looks like asking Cursor about our tracks in a new tab seems to have helped, because I can see here that the tracks that I've liked are very clearly listed now. There's Good For You, Levitating, Dua Lipa song, the Metro Booming song, Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. These are all of the tracks that we liked together, and that basically verifies that Cursor can analyze and get the tea, get the juice on what's happening in our database without us having to log in separately. Very handy for the future. So I think this is probably the more useful screenshot. Maybe something like this. A very busy screenshot. But if I were to combine these screenshots together, it makes it very clear, which tracks that we can use Cursor to analyze what tracks our users have liked. And I'm going to add that as a screenshot. As a screenshot in my documentation. Okay. Cool. So storing user emails means Storing user emails means we are storing personal, private information. But one way to minimize risk, what do you think? So one way to minimize risk is to strategize the structure of your data. So you are always using a, unique user ID to identify your users rather than by their email. This helps to anonymize data, anonymize in quote marks, where a user ID points to a specific user, but it wouldn't be recognizable or personally identifiable to anyone that tries to leak this data. Supabase's free tier allows, this one I don't think is very useful, so we'll take that away. All right, next up. Besides listing users and their like tracks, what other questions could you ask Cursor about your data? In the future, we could also ask Cursor questions like calculating percentages, popularity scores, comparisons between data. Maybe when the data becomes more complex, we can even ask questions around patterns or analysis that we can't, we don't even know about yet. E.g., is there any way we can predict what could be popular tracks in the future? Based on the data in our database. Okay, very nice. So you've successfully guided an AI, in this case Cursor, to build a complex, secure, and personalized user authentication feature. Well done. So you've seen firsthand how AI like Cursor can accelerate development from a single idea to a fully functional user authentication feature. You're more than welcome to delete your resources today. You've got your Supabase project that you can delete. You've got your project folder, like your NextSound code. Again, it doesn't cost any money to keep these, but if you just like to clean things up, here are the steps for doing that. You can definitely go ahead. Now, there are a few concepts that we can review to wrap up today's project. So, the key tools we used include Cursor. We definitely used Cursor. We used Supabase. We used MCPs, and key concepts that we learned include, oh my god, so many. Maybe how to set up MCPs, Supabase organizations and projects. We learned about user authentication, database schema, how to SQL or tool calls. Those are all learnings from this project. How good. So the most important thing we learned was, this of course is something that's completely up to you. One I have is how MCPs let you stay in flow. You can now do so much more without having to leave your IDE. Cursor is now so much more powerful. Well beyond, you know, code generation. How long did it take you to complete this project? This project took us approximately 2.5 hours, including demo time. The most challenging part was setting up user authentication, but I would say specifically understanding the data structure or the data schema around how authentication works. It was most rewarding though, oh, so rewarding to see, it was definitely most rewarding to see our like counts updating, or you know, or our database updating depending on, based on actions we take in the web app or with cursor prompts. With the skills we learned, what's something you want to build next? Ooh, I would say we want to build next our very own custom MCP server, so we can create, I would say, powerful functionalities, you know, commands that Cursor can now do that we can't really find, that's personalized maybe to our own web app. Let's see, NextSound MCP. That would be crazy. Okay, so thanks so much for doing this project. So, you know, we did this project today to maybe learn about how to build a database. Another AI skill I want to learn is there another AI skill you want to learn? Maybe you want to learn how to use generative UI. This project met our goals because it was hands-on and we worked that MCP server. We really did. That MCP server did a lot of work for us today. It did not just get installed and then just sat on the side. Nah, it did a lot of work for us. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. You have done an amazing job doing this project today. It is not an easy one because there's MCPs going on, there is Supabase going on, database setup. So amazing work, and I see that there is one last task that is still to complete, which we can enter here. An environment file stores sensitive information like secrets and API keys. For NextSound, it contains the address and access key to our Supabase database. This is important because our web app needs this information, these credentials, in order to connect to our database. Nice. So let's enter that. I think we can complete our project now. Well done, team. Woohoo! Let's download our documentation. I bet it's gonna look so beautiful. We can save it as a PDF. Let's click that now. And we can create a post on LinkedIn so we can share our work straight away. Now, awesome LinkedIn post. Database, natural language database management is the future of development. Whoa. Today, I built and queried a live database for my Spotify clone without SQL or complex queries. I connected Cursor with the Supabase MCP, then prompted a Cursor agent to build out the tables and a full working feature right in my chat. Check out my documentation for the step-by-step process. Very nice. Looks like, is our documentation getting downloaded? Yes, it is. Oh my gosh, are you excited to see it? Ah, I know I am. I always get so excited to see my documentation. Build a database with Cursor and Supabase MCP. Nice. So we've got all of the work for what we did in this project, how we set up Cursor and MCPs, How cursor set up the data, how we set up cursor, very nice. Testing the likes feature, querying it with natural language. Yeah, updating the like count with cursor. And our secret mission as well. So cool. This is a beautiful piece of documentation. So proud of it. I think I am ready to upload that into my LinkedIn post. Let's put that in here. Let's give it a nice title. So build a database with cursor and the Supabase MCP. Nice. Yeah, database. Oh, look at this documentation. I have to add it to my portfolio too. So you can click on that Save as PDF button, switch that over to Save to Portfolio, and once you click Save Documentation, now a copy is going to be stored straight into your NextSound portfolio. Well done, team. This has been a very fun project. I think we learned a lot about MCPs, databases, Supabase, cursor, prompting, all of that in one project. So well done you for making it here. And we can't wait to see your documentation. If you get stuck, don't hesitate to ask, either in your project or with the NextSound community. We can't wait to hear what you get up to with this project. And if you create your own new feature, do share it with us and tag NextSound on whatever social media. We're probably there. Thanks everyone, and hope to see you in the next project.